Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Unleashing Potentials podcast. So, joining me today is Rachel, all the way from the UK. Welcome, Rachel.
Hi, thank you for having me.
How are you?
I'm okay, thanks. It's our typical British summer, sun, rain, all in the same day, in the same hour.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, we've had rain here for a bit, and it's been sunny and nice so far.
Yeah, to be honest, the rain's quite good. It's good for the plants.
Yeah, you're right. It is. Yeah. So welcome. To start, can you tell us who you are, what you do, and how you do it?
Okay, so my name's Rachel, and I would introduce myself like that because I'm a healthcare professional, or I have been for 30 years. And there was a doctor who had cancer, and it's called Kate Granger. She's not with us anymore. But when she became a patient, she noticed that people never introduced themselves to her. So, when she was a patient, she realized how bad it was, what the experience was like. So she started a campaign called Hello, My Name Is, and it went viral on Twitter. And it ended up with a lot of hospital trusts getting name badges that actually said, hello, my name is, and your first name. Because for a patient, that's quite intimidating, not knowing who's looking after you, especially when you've got like a group of doctors at the bedside and they're all stood talking about you, not to you. So, Kate, sadly, probably about 5 years ago now, passed away. But I think it's important to keep her legacy going. And I think, we spoke previously, so as well, I'm the patient as well now, so I can see it from that side as well. And actually, sadly, lots of that during COVID and thing, that sort of personal touch seems to have gone. Everyone's burnt out and exhausted, and the staff running around, not enough finances. So I became a patient just before COVID. I found a lump in my bone, which is a non-cancerous, it's a mass and it can't be removed, but it's not cancer. It's a really rare disease. And they said to me that it's the result of trauma. And I was thinking like car accident, like seatbelt or something. But actually it's, I was in a long-term abusive relationship and I left, and that's it's the trauma that you perhaps push to one side. So, I left, it was worse when I left. And then I started a new life. So I think that residual trauma in my body, they say it's like your body attacking itself, don't they? It's autoimmune, auto-inflammatory disease. So I've had to learn to I've had to change my life. So obviously getting ill right at the start of the pandemic wasn't the best time because access to healthcare has just dived straight away. And my consultant's in London, so like a good 4.5 hours drive away. But it was for me, it was a point where it made me stop and think about what I was doing with my life, and did I really want to be working 60 hours a week, and who actually is grateful for that anyway? Everyone's indisposable, aren't they? So I did work as long as I could full time, and then I realized it was just like, why am I doing this? Like, who am I trying to prove it to? So I took some time off. I was supposed to be starting trial treatment, a bit like chemotherapy and immunotherapy drug. And again, because of COVID, that didn't happen. The funding was delayed, the treatment was delayed, and so I ended up having some time off. So I was teaching pharmaceutical sciences then, and so that was quite a lot of paperwork and typing. So you can imagine with a sort of mass in your right clavicle that actually my right arm isn't as good, but pretty useless, and typing hurts. So trying to find, I thought about what kind of things I could do that still lit me up, what I was still passionate about, but actually that still made a difference and an impact. So during that time, obviously I've been quite bully as well, but I did some training around domestic abuse, like formal training. Obviously I've got lived experience, but I did some formal training. I did my Reiki healing practitioner course. I've always been spiritual as well, so I always call myself a sort of spiritual scientist. a mix of both. You know, I'm highly intuitive. My great aunt was a psychic medium and a healer, and people used to come for miles to see her. And I kind of forgot, you know, like with trauma, you forget big parts of your life. And it wasn't really until I'd been really sick for about a year and I realized I wasn't getting better and I was looking for alternative ways to heal that I kind of had a medium reading myself. And and she was still sort of talking about it, and I was like, gosh, what, like it's staring me in the face. Why aren't I using energy healing? And that led me to do the Reiki. But actually I kind of like, although I've qualified in Reiki, I just kind of freestyle it a bit like, you know, a bit of a pre-channel it. And, you know, I remembered that. I started to remember the things that she was called Maud. So she was actually my granddad's auntie. So like my great aunt or something like that. But yeah, my granddad, funny enough, my dad says my granddad wouldn't have said it, but he called her a witch. So she's a bit like me. She's an old spinster, lived on her own and never got married. But yeah, she used, you know, she healed people through energy, and she taught me how to make a energy ball. You know, like where you do it with your hands and then you like feel the warmth and then you let that channel into wherever it needs to go. And so Harley, who you just met, he came to me just over 2 years ago for palliative care after I lost my Staphylococcus. And he's got an adenocarcinoma, so he's got a big tumor in his throat, and they gave him 8 to 12 weeks to live in February 2021. And we just hid each other, and he's still here. So like, I think I write about Harley quite a lot in my writing and blogs because he's the epitome of how just because someone says you're going to die, you don't have to. I think as a dog, you know, he's aware that he's got this big thing growing here, but he doesn't let it stop him doing anything. And I think, you know, if I've ever had days where, you know, you feel a bit frustrated or sorry for yourself, because, you know, undoubtedly when you're ill and you're in a lot of pain, you do feel sorry for yourself sometimes. I never like, why me? But, you know, sometimes when you're in a lot of pain, you get a bit fed up. So yeah, if I ever feel like that, I just have to look at Harley running around with his ball and living his best life to remind me that, you know, we've always got hope. And I think that's really important. So yeah, I do a lot of writing, blogging, and started to do more podcasts and things this year. I trained as a coach as well, a spiritual coach, life coach, and then I've done my NLP masters and things like that. During the time I've been sick, I've done lots of sort of educating, thinking, what am I going to do? How can I use my existing skills? So in my professional career, I was in leadership, did lots of national leadership work, and I also did like education and training as well. And I wanted to do some of that, but in a different way. And I kind of like to infuse magic, and I think part of the magic is helping people see what special qualities they've already got inside themselves. And I think with teaching, you're teaching a syllabus and you've got to stick to the kind of what you're told to teach. And when you've got big classes of students and things as well, it's like it's harder to give everyone the attention that they need. So I decided to go into coaching, because you can either do like small group coaching or you could do like one-to-one. And I think, again, intuitively, it depends on who you're working with. And we don't always know what we need until we talk to someone. And I found that myself, you know. So, like I said, I looked at Reiki healing for me. And again, almost like hilarious, but because my career's in pharmacy, but I want to be as medicine free as possible. So I also use like clinical hypnosis. I've got a friend who's a hypnotherapist. And so we looked at how I could use hypnotherapy to release my trauma and to help me sleep and help me manage the pain. And so, yeah, I do have some painkillers, but yeah, I try to, you know, not have medication unless I can, which is kind of a bit, yeah, ironic as a pharmacist, you know, being a pharmacy professional. But I think medicine can be a sticking plaster sometimes. And if you've got a long-term condition that's incurable, like mine is, then sometimes medicine can make you feel worse. And, you know, like I was offered chemotherapy and stuff like that, but actually there's no evidence in my disease that chemotherapy will help. And actually it'll end up making me feel well. You know, my intuition is I would feel worse, you know, my liver and kidneys, my hair will fall out, all the stuff that goes with having chemo with like no promised outcome. Not that there is anyway, but for me, yeah, I just weighed it up. So recently kind of parted ways with my doctor in the hospital because he kind of gave me an ultimatum of you have chemotherapy or nothing. So I kind of just went nothing because for whatever reason, you know, like I'm still here, like, you know, like, so 3 years ago, just before COVID, I was told, you know, you've got this disease, it's aggressive, it's going to keep growing, we can't cure it, we can't shrink it, we can't do this. And like 3 years later, I'm sat here. Yes, I still have bad pain and there's things that I've had to adjust in my life, but, you know, I'm still here. So I kind of think, well, something's, you know, whether it's the universe, whatever, something's keeping me here. It might be that we've all got a purpose, haven't we, on this earth, I think. So, you know, I think people that have been through trauma, a lot of people want to try and help other people so they don't have to suffer the same thing. And, you know, again, like some people, I've had some people like say shut up about it, you know, like don't talk about it. And it's like there's still a lot of stigma, isn't there, around trauma. Again, I don't like the language that's used. Like, I know we get a diagnosis saying we've got like chronic post-traumatic stress disorder, but that's suggesting that we are, you know, mentally disordered when actually we're not. We've been through, you know, it's a post-traumatic response. You know, we are responding to something very real that happened to us, often repeatedly for a long period of time. So, yeah, I guess because I'm in the medical profession myself, I can argue with my doctors quite confidently and say, well, does that make me mad? You know, if someone tried to like strangle me, or someone tried to do this, or someone did that, you know, does me responding as having anxiety, does that make me mad? Or is that just natural because I challenge you to have lived through what I lived through and not feel the same way? So I think it's part of, yeah. And I left my relationship. My nan died. That was kind of the trigger for me leaving. My nan's a big part of my life, and she's tiny little, half Italian, like 5 foot, but very feisty. And when she died, I was privileged enough to look after her, be holding her hand when she died because she wanted to be at home. And when I was driving home and when I got back, my ex, he just went mental about me having a good time, being out having a good time. And it was, I think at that moment, I kind of was like, I could hear my nan's voice saying like, what the hell are you doing with your life? And for a long time I'd been, I guess, just existing. And I think people don't realise like how many years you can do that for. So I went to work, I had a really good job, I was, you know, recognised in my profession nationally, I had a good leadership role. And work was my safe place. And because I got a new boss as well, and, you know, all around the same time my nan dying and stuff, and because I'd been off sick, I had some time off and different stuff, I was managed for my sickness. And she wanted to downgrade my job, and I said no, because I worked really hard for my career. And so we had a whole long time of it, and eventually I got sacked from my job, which, again, young me, 18-year-old me, would have thought that's the worst thing in the world. But actually that was the last thing that I had. So losing my job, ironically, was the one very thing that freed me enough to leave, because I just literally had nothing anymore. I had no safe space to go during the day. I was, yeah. So that resulted in me having the bravery one day when he was kicking off and saying, well, because he used to do it all the time, oh, it's over, I've got all these other women waiting for me. And, you know, you just be sitting there meekly going, oh God, I wish, you know, where are they? One of them take you. But yeah, he said it one day, and I think just because the accumulation, losing my job, losing my nan, and some big events, I guess I kind of realised, and I just said, yeah, we are. I didn't know what I was going to do next, but once I said those words out loud, that gave me the sort of power, and I didn't have any clue at that time how or what I was going to do. and me and my little dog and my little my little blue car, my little blue cabin case, which was like this big, which if anyone knows me knows that I like take 10 times that just for one night out. So that was kind of minuscule. It was literally what we could grab, and came back. I moved back and stayed with my mum for a while, and then obviously it took a long time to do all the legal stuff, and then rebuilt my life. Got an old house which I've renovated, and yeah, just worked, and just I have quite a peaceful life now. And that's another thing that's ironic, because I'm poorly. People think that you can't be happy, and actually I'm like happier and safer than I've ever been. You know, I've created a safe space that belongs to me, that you know, people are only invited into, and it's mine. And I think, yeah, so people are surprised. I think people think you sit and that you feel sorry for yourself all the time when you're poorly, and I don't. You know, the people I know, the people I've met are all inspiring, and that's not the case. You know, so I think, again, I've done like a little bit of research myself about trauma and about disease, because obviously, you know, that's what's been presented, that's how my life has come. So I've learned that, you know, what's happened to me is part of because I disassociated from what happened to me. So I didn't actually ever, I was just like, had the first year where you're on eggshells, because the first year after you leave, they get more violent, they get more aggressive, they've lost control of you, and things escalate more than you can ever imagine. And then after that, after he got a big amount of payout from selling the house, then he kind of did sort of take the money and go, and probably moved on to the next person. So it was at that point I could finally stop and sort of breathe and start to build a new life. And again, I just was working flat out. So I'd got the house, I got 2 jobs, I was trying to renovate the house when I wasn't working. So that was kind of like, I was just really, really busy for a year, like never had time to think, never had to stop and think about what happened to me or process it or how that was going to affect me. And I think maybe it was towards the time that I stopped, when the house was nearly finished, that my body then presented, you know, I woke up one morning and couldn't move my arm or my neck. And that's when the whole journey of being ill, obviously whatever's growing inside me was already there. You know, you don't just wake up overnight, do you, with a mass in your bone? But it was obviously when I slowed down a little bit that it manifested and I got the symptoms. So that gave, you know, again, so these things happen, you know, these things happen for a reason, don't they? So it was, to me, it was the universe telling me that it's time to like stop working all the time, stop giving all of yourself to other people that don't like respect it. And I can't change who I am. I'm always going to be like an empath. I'm always going to be a carer, you know, like ever since I was a little kid, I've always, you know, wanted to do something in medicine or whatever. So I think it's important, like, to, yeah, I'm not going to let what happened to me change me from that point of view. But I have had to learn things that we aren't taught at school, things like boundaries, healthy boundaries, because I didn't know what they were. Things like limiting beliefs, so things that my mum might have inherited from my nan and that my mum's passed on to me. And then things that obviously my partner, you know, when you're with an abusive partner, all the things that they tell you day after day after day. And when you're with someone for that long, so we were together for nearly 17 years, those kind of things are worse than being hit. And people don't understand that. They look at you like you're a bit crazy. If you say, oh, you know, actually being like punched in the face or whatever, that wasn't the worst thing that could happen to you. Actually, those kind of things were quite quick, because once someone's hit you, pushed you, grabbed you, whatever, usually then they've got that out of their system and they go and leave you to it and come back saying they're sorry. But when they're like being coercive and manipulative and aggressive, like verbally, that can last for hours and hours or even days. And then you're living and walking on eggshells. So I think all of those things, I think like why I want to share my experiences so that I can help other people not go through what I went through. Because I'm educated. I didn't know there was help. I didn't know that you could get help and get a plan to leave safely. It never even occurred to me, because by that time I was literally just getting through the day. If I could get through each day until the next one, I could never ever see how I could get out of the situation I was in.
Mhm.
And so little things like having a plan, having your money somewhere so that you can access it, having your passport, your birth certificate, your driving license, because mine took all of those. And you can't start a new life without those things here. You need to have ID to get a bank account. You need to have ID to rent a house. And
Mhm.
so those kind of things that, like, just because you physically left, they're still controlling because they've got those things, and like and getting to that point where you leave everything you own behind, everything you've worked for, you have to leave it all behind. But actually, again, that taught me that I didn't need all the stuff that I had.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, the stuff that you need is just within you. It's not, it's nice to have all these nice things, but they don't mean anything if you're not safe and you're not happy. So
Mhm.
again, I think I always try to learn from experiences. And like
Mhm.
a lot of people say there's two things. People say you have to, like, get angry about what happened to you, and I've never really got angry. I don't know why, but it's just like it's one of the 7 stages of grief or whatever that they say you go through. I'm not really a massively angry person. I think I turn things more inwards. Like, if anything, I'd be angry at myself for staying in that situation for so long and not knowing better.
Mhm.
But actually, and again, with forgiveness, people are like, oh, you have to forgive to move on. My personal opinion on that is I need to forgive myself, but I don't necessarily agree that I need to forgive the person that chose to hurt me every day, or
Mm.
that chose his actions. And he was, it quite intentionally did, because he knew if he took drugs he would be more violent, so he had the choice whether he took drugs or not. I know some people say it's an addiction, but he could give up when he wanted to, and then he would start again when he wanted to. So he was quite powerful. He had quite a powerful mind. He was in control. And so, yeah, I feel like I can move on. I forget, like, not forget, but I don't think about it or wish him any harm or anything like that. That's not my place. The universe will sort that out. But I don't feel like I need to forgive him to live the rest of my life happily. And
Mhm.
I was speaking to some other women that have been through similar situations, and there's a really big pressure of people going, oh, you've got to forgive them or you can't be happy. And again, I think that's a really big misconception, because
Mm.
if someone's strangled you or beaten you or done something to your kids, or why do you have to forgive them? Do you know what I mean? Like, why do you? Because, like, if they intentionally cause you harm over and over again, they knew what they were doing, then that's just my personal take, and a lot of people disagree with that. I've got a lot of friends that say, oh, forgiveness is the way to heal. But I think, really, for me, healing is about looking inside ourselves and seeing how we ended up in that situation. Like, how did we think those behaviors were acceptable?
Mhm.
What was it in our life that meant that we didn't have any boundaries that let people treat us like that? Because, again, we can't change what other people do. We can only change ourselves.
Mhm.
And there isn't a magic plaster. There isn't anything that can magically heal us. Um, and I think, it's important. So again, I write about, obviously there's like vicarious trauma, like where women are in a group. So when I first went to a group therapy for women that have been in abusive relationships, obviously you form like a trauma bond, don't you, with other women.
Mhm.
But I like to think about and talk about vicarious resilience now. So more of a, let's turn our pain into power and let's share our message, and let's help people that way, rather than like a group of like, oh my god, that was awful. And I don't know if you found it, but like the competitiveness, sometimes not competitive, but people would be going, oh god, yours was worse than mine, and mine was, oh, I didn't have it as bad as you. And actually, there is no like benchmark for abuse. Like, if any abuse that you've had is okay,
Mhm.
and yes, there are people who've had it worse than me, people have had it less, for less length of time, but it doesn't mean it's not impacted on their life as much. So
Mhm.
I think, again, like, it's like, we need to take away all these stigmas and misconceptions around it, and actually just support each other, and also make it okay to talk about it, because maybe if I'd heard people talking about it, I would have questioned things earlier.
Mm.
You know, it was never spoken about. Like, it wasn't ever something I learned about at school or at home. You know, it was never discussed. It wasn't really like on the TV. Like now, it's in. There are documentaries, aren't there, and programs about it and stuff. But
Mm.
again, there's still women getting killed every day by their partners.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, every day, and like gender-based violence. You know, and again, I know people say, and I agree. I work, you know, with different people that it happens to men too. Yes, it does, but 95% of the cases are to women.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And you know, so it's not saying it doesn't happen to men, but yeah, 95% of gender-based violence is towards women. So
mm-hmm.
you know, that's a huge number,
Yeah.
and that's only the people that have reported it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's not the people that aren't strong enough or haven't got any support and are really isolated and haven't had the opportunity to report it. So I think that as well, those figures don't reflect the actual amount of abuse and trauma that's happening in the world, and there's not any actual studies, but again around suicide, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like women that kill themselves because of abuse. To, you know, that should that be like classed as murder? You know, some sort of. And again, there's not much studies. Conviction rates, I don't know what it's like in the US and Canada, but conviction rates aren't really high here. The government has like put new legislation in, etc., but actually when it comes to implementation,
Mm-hmm.
it just doesn't happen. And I'm sure you're aware, like many people I'm speaking to, the police will say if there's just two of you, it's your word against theirs, it's just a domestic dispute or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't always take it seriously. And I think that's why a lot of people don't leave and don't come forward either, because they've been brainwashed and told that no one's going to believe you. You're told that everyone, you know, your family are fed. They'll say things like, your family's fed up of you. They think you're all this, they think you're that. And day after day, year after year, you will start to believe those things. So you will become isolated.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a double-edged sword, because you're then dependent on that person that's destroying your soul. You know, I literally, I guess, and this is another irony, is I probably feel more alive now, even though I'm really ill, than I did for like all those years when I was trapped in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
Which, yeah, so yeah, life is funny, isn't it? You know, all these things happen, but yeah, I've never really said that. I've never really thought of it like that before. But yeah, I'm probably more alive now than I was for years and years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your story, Rachel. Thank you for helping women know that they're not alone, because it's easy to think and feel that way because we're programmed that way sometimes by society. And yeah, it's so bad in some countries. Me as a little girl, I grew up watching my dad beating on my mom, and lots of abuse of all kinds. And how did that mess me up? I don't trust men, right? Because that wasn't modeled to me. And it's sad because there are so many kids that are in those families, they're trapped and they're innocent, and that's what they have to witness and heal from. And it's a lot of trauma to heal from anything like that, and a lot of therapy.
Yeah, and I think it's really important. Like we don't. I think we can teach children about abuse and trauma without actually saying those words. I think we can teach children what healthy boundaries are
Mm,
and what healthy relationships look like. So
mhm,
I think we can do it in a positive way,
mhm,
but a way that empowers children to know when something isn't right, when something isn't safe, and that they've got somewhere to go and ask for support.
mm,
And you know, that should be at school really, because obviously that if they're having trauma at home,
mhm,
then school should be the place where there's somebody that's their champion that they can go to.
mhm.
And I think, like you said, all of us, probably most of the people that suffer trauma in adulthood, have experienced some sort of
Yeah.
parental abuse in some form or other, whether it's narcissistic, coercive, or
Mhm,
physical, or a mixture of all of it.
mm,
Um, and I think, you know, most people you speak to, when you start and look at pattern changing and how you're going to break the cycle, you go deep. If you go deep and look at what's happened, it often stems from things, like, why did I grow up? Why was my first serious and long relationship? Maybe I just thought that was normal, that every family was like that that's what relationships were like. And I think again, there's like a misconception. Abuse, it doesn't just happen to people that are poor. It can happen to anybody. It's not just a class thing. It's not a wealth thing. It's a global pandemic, really, isn't it? It's happening. And like you said, I spoke to a pharmacist in Malawi, and she said, she was telling me about obviously some of the cases, and there's this thing there where businessmen are told to if they have sex with a baby, that they will become really wealthy. And when you think there's these things going on in the world like that, why is no one speaking up about it? Why is you just can't, I can't even comprehend that we live in a world like that, where that's something that happens. And I get how much trauma, obviously, for the baby, but I mean, as a mother, can you imagine how much trauma knowing that's happened to your child, and probably not empowered enough to do anything about it? It's absolutely heartbreaking, isn't it? And I think like trying to educate people and offer support systems. So another doctor I know who's in India, she's just started a charity to try and educate doctors, not to heal the trauma, but to know how to signpost people. And again, the girls there are quite young and they don't necessarily read or write. They live in villages. They haven't got access to certain things. So, giving them a leaflet, that's not going to help. It's no good. Like here in this country, we've got like phone lines. We've got, we can go online. We can get support that way. But over in other countries, they haven't got a phone. They can't read and write. They can't just go on and Google it and chat to someone and get some support that way. So I think there's such a huge lot of like work to be done. And like, I think countries where we've got more resources, we should be joining together with women in other countries and trying to help them if they want to try and put something in place. And also save them having to start everything from scratch. If we've already got it, we should be sharing it, and we should be supporting them, because again, like who would want anyone to go through trauma if they don't have to? Children, adults. Again, there's a really big rise in this country about older people getting abused, like in care homes or in hospitals and things like that as well, like sexually abused, assaulted and things like that. It's just everywhere, isn't it? And it's really heartbreaking. And especially when the people are vulnerable, like you said, if they're children or older people and they're being cared for, who's going to advocate for them? And I think, it's really heartbreaking. But all we can do is like speak up about it, and hopefully like enough people that speak up about it, then people will be more aware of the signs to look for, how to intervene safely. Because again, like if someone had come into my house, not that anyone was really allowed in, but if someone had come into my house and said to him, don't do that, you can't do that, the minute they would have left, he would have been a lot worse, because he would have, why have you been saying this about me or whatever? So there's got to be like, people have got to be educated in a way to intervene that's safe as well, that's not going to cause you more harm or put you at more risk. And I think all of these things we don't know about, do we? Maybe you don't know until it's you and after you've been through the other side. But if you can sort of share so that you can help it, and definitely, like my favorite word, empower people, to get out of those situations. And safety is the biggest thing, isn't it? Being safe and having a safe space, and knowing that you matter, because I think that's something as well, isn't it? You get to a point where you just exist, and you perhaps don't think that you matter in the world, and that you're invisible. And I think, like I said, I imagine if you're even more isolated, living in a little village in a country where you're surrounded by people that normalize that behavior, then it just, it's heartbreaking.
So you've been a healthcare professional and a patient. Those are two things that most people don't get the opportunity to be. I've
I
been a
don't.
patient, not a professional. Tell me your opinion on that.
Well, like I said, it couldn't be the worst time to get ill, could it? Just as the world goes into lockdown and all everyone cares about is COVID. So I literally got told in the 7th of February, I think, that I'd got this disease. It was incurable. I needed this treatment urgently to stop it growing, that they couldn't cut it out. Um, and I was then referred to the specialist in London, who's a world expert. So I think he's only got 80 patients in this country that have got the same illness.
Mm,
So it's really rare.
mhm,
And then we went into what was supposed to be 3 weeks lockdown. And then I had to follow shielding. So I don't know if you had that in America, like, where people that are clinically vulnerable had to isolate basically. So I had like 15 months of isolation. Well, obviously I have my dog and I'm a best friend.
mm,
But yeah, that's a long time to be like away from the world and people.
mhm,
So most of my healthcare during that time was very minimal. It was very much done over video calls and things, which isn't really
mhm, mhm.
proper
Yeah.
healthcare, is it? And to be
Mhm,
honest, so for me, it hasn't really got back to normal yet. My consultant's still catching up. Um, some other patients are saying that since the pandemic, like he's just not got the mojo, whatever. He's just not got it anymore. Like I don't know. And again, people working in hospitals during the pandemic have suffered huge trauma themselves. Like
mhm,
that amount of death
mm,
isn't what you're signing up for. It's not what you're used to experiencing.
mhm, mhm,
So I think whether he like his heart's not in it, so he doesn't follow up regularly. Things get lost. I might go for imaging here, and then it seems to get lost. Then I've got to go and wait another 6 months and get it done again. Our healthcare
mm,
system now is bursting at the seams. It's behind on diagnostics and treatment.
mm.
And actually, we've still got hospitals full of COVID patients,
Wow.
even though it's not in the press every day. But like my local hospital, the nurse that came out to me was like, "Actually, you're better off at home," which I totally agree with. I don't want to step foot in the hospital again if I can help it. But he said, like the hospital's got really high levels of COVID, and for someone like me who's got a weak immune system, that could wipe me out. So yeah, I'm happy in my little life and sit at home in the garden, get fresh air as much as possible.
Mhm,
And again, I've tried to, like I said, I looked at alternative therapies. I try to do as much stuff as I can to control my pain. So like
mm,
as well, looking at diet. And there's lots of different, again, so opposing arguments.
mm.
It's not always scientific. I think some of it's trial and error around things that flare up your inflammatory system and things like that.
Mhm,
So yeah, just trying to do the best I can and like live with my condition.
mhm,
And yeah, sometimes it's hard and like it can be horrible when you're in pain and you can't sleep at night, for example. And it can be frustrating, like when I first bought my house, I was like ripping the walls down and doing all this stuff. And like now I can't even lift my arm up to the cupboard. So yeah, some things are frustrating. But
mhm,
I think I'm learning, like I've got to be kinder to myself, like I can't compare. I think this is the thing. People think women compare women to other women, but actually we're most guilty of comparing ourselves to another version of ourselves. So
mhm,
like I've never ever looked at another woman and compared myself to them. And there are women that I look up to and I admire, but I've never like been jealous of another woman.
mhm,
But I do sometimes. A photo will pop up on my phone of like that old version of me, the one that could go to the gym or could go boxing or could knock a wall down, chop a tree up, or
mhm,
all of the different things that I learned from my dad. That version of me doesn't exist anymore, and the reality is she's not going to come back. So I think
mhm,
we sometimes we can be guilty of going, "Oh, I wish I was," but the fact is we're not. We're never going to go. No one can go backwards.
mm,
And I think as well that's kind of an important message, because I think as a lot of people have had trauma as well, they kind of spend time wishing that they could go back to who they were before the trauma.
mm,
And I think it's really important to say that you're never going to go back to that person, but you're going to come out the other side of it in
mhm,
your own time as a stronger and better person and more empowered.
mhm,
And I think like, don't get hung up on going, oh, I wish I was the person that before that happened to me, because
Mm,
that's just a waste of your energy. And yeah, I think, you people, there is hope for everyone. And I think, like, I left, I was in my 40s, I left with nothing, started again. So, it's possible. And I know people older than me that have done it,
mhm,
because there's always this thing is that they're about age and I'm too old to leave now. But again, you're never too old, you're never too late. That's what my nan would have said to me,
mhm,
and we can choose to
mhm,
take the journey to try and find happiness. And it's not, it's like, no promises. It's hard work, isn't it? It's hard work looking at yourself and looking at the
mhm. Yeah.
beliefs that you've got, the um, behaviors that you've got, because the behaviors that we learn as coping mechanisms to keep us safe
Mhm,
can also keep us isolated, because our barriers are up so high that we, like you said, you mentioned to me, didn't you, like your experience of men and being violent has meant that you've like sort of steered away from them. And I
yeah.
guess mine's quite similar in terms of relationships. Like,
Mhm,
I'll be very wary of what relationships, and that's not just with men. That could be, that's all humans. I'm very wary of
mm,
getting hurt again.
yeah.
And um, I don't mean like on a like low level. I mean on a like a deeper, like emotional and physical level. So yeah, I will keep my guard up,
Mhm,
um, and not like. And I think again, it's like learn to reconnect with your inner child, isn't it? I've been um,
mhm,
so I guess now I went, obviously we go through stages of healing, don't we? So the first part is getting through the trauma itself. Then you start to look at the patterns and why you went there. And then you can start to look at reconnecting with your inner child, who was that carefree
mm,
young person that was climbing trees or running through the fields, or
mm,
so
yeah.
it's kind of like a cycle, isn't it, of healing. And I think it's at that point when you sort of try and think about what things did I do that made me happy before anyone else had any influence over it.
Mhm,
And again, all of those things, because I think some people do stay in abusive relationships because of the money. Like, I've spoken to a woman, I was trying to help her. She's lives in a big house. Kids go to private school. She's got a nice car, got horses, and that's kind of one of the reasons why she doesn't want to leave, because
mm,
she'd have to leave and she wouldn't have that. So sometimes we can trap ourselves in situations, but actually the best things that are in life are our freedom,
mhm,
and being able to go for a walk in the fresh air, go to the beach, um, go in the woods. All of those things are actually free.
mhm,
And I think, that they're the things that are actually priceless.
mhm,
And I think sometimes people maybe are too scared to lose the financial type of
mm,
things that they've got.
mhm,
And I don't know about other people, but like, so my ex did something. Because he couldn't hurt me, he put his foot across our dog's throat, and he knew that by hurting the dog, that would hurt me, because you get to a point, don't you, where there's nothing they can do to you anymore. You're just like emotionally dead. So he put his foot across her throat and told me if I moved or tried to stop, that he would like basically kill her. And I think that was something that was really traumatic for me, because obviously we were kept each other alive.
mm,
And then the day after, he was really sorry, and he took me and he brought me this really expensive designer handbag that I'd wanted for ages.
mhm,
And then he would always sort of say, like, why aren't you using that bag? But every time I saw the bag, I saw what he did to my dog.
mm,
Do you know what I mean? So, like, for me, I associated that bag with why I had it. And there's loads of little things that you don't always remember yourself, but like people don't realize, like, they'll be like, oh, but he buys you nice things. He does this. He seems like mine was really good looking. Yeah, oh, he's really good looking. Oh, that can't be true. Um, it's just
mhm,
so many misconceptions. What does someone who's cruel, mentally cruel and physically cruel, what do they look like? Do they have to be
mm,
unattractive?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That is such a myth as well, isn't it? Oh, what? So someone who's tall, dark, and handsome can't be like narcissistic psycho, because they can.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Wow, thank you for sharing. You've gone through so much, and I think you've made the best of everything that you've been through. And it takes a very strong person to do that, and you are that person. I thank you for that. Um, There's so much to unpack.
I know it's funny because I don't always think I'm strong. You know, like we all have moments like you must have as well. You have chronic pain that you're in an injury, and my dad will just tell me like if you know like my dad's probably the only person that I cry to.
Mm,
Um, you know, apart from that, I don't really cry very often, and that again was part of trauma. You know, learning not to show any emotion, but
mm,
if I ever do have a moment and I'm like crying to my dad, he's just like, "Oh, you're strong." Like there is no yes or no. It's just you're my daughter and you're strong.
mm, mm,
Like there's no I don't get a choice in it. He's just like, "Hey, you're my daughter. You're strong. You can do anything."
mhm.
So I think as well, like if we all need just one person to believe in us, don't we?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that person doesn't have to be someone we know. It could be a stranger.
Mhm,
um you know, but we just all if we've got one person that believes in us and supports us, then that's like
mhm,
enough to keep us here, I think.
mhm, mhm. Yeah. And just one person to be to have to be able to talk to, because so many of us were expected to be strong even though we're breaking down. And because of that, most of us we've never learned or know what it's like to process pain or trauma. And yeah, yeah, I think it's something that we all could work on to improve. Like you mentioned, to not judge others based on what they've been through or just comparing our traumas. That's also dangerous in a way because it restricts people from healing because they're thinking, oh, my trauma wasn't as big as hers or theirs. So it's not important when really that's not always the case. Every trauma is important to face and to go through.
Exactly, and like you know, like one traumatic event can be just as impactful on your life as a series of, you know,
Hmm.
one huge impactful event can be just as bad as a series of little insidious ones, you know. And again, everyone's got their own different inbuilt resilience,
Hmm.
and you know, one person can survive really awful things and another person might not survive that. They might not want to be here anymore. And you know, I've had friends, I know people as well that have taken that choice. So just the pain to be on this earth was too much for them.
Hmm.
And you know, I think that you know that happens more than we realize and more than people want to say, you know, because people, I think as well, the term broken, I hate the term broken.
Mm,
It's a bit like disordered, you know, we're not broken.
mm, mhm,
I think there's, like you said, there's a lot of negative languages, and sometimes they're used by people that have been through trauma themselves, and that's because what they've learned, or you know, you're a victim, you're broken, you're damaged.
mm,
Those kind of terms, you know, they're not really helpful, are they? And
mhm,
they are limiting beliefs. They're just reinforcing that what happened to you is maybe your fault,
mhm, mhm,
or that you deserved it somehow and like nobody deserves it. So yeah, and again, so I think when we talk back about children and educating children, yes, we don't have to tell children all the horrific things that can happen in abuse, you know, all that kind of thing. But the things we can teach children are like good behaviors, good values, how to be kind to each other,
mhm,
and what to do if someone's not treating you
mhm. Yeah.
in a way that makes you feel good. You know, like if someone's making you feel bad about yourself,
Mm,
because again, the amount of depression in young children and teenagers now is just phenomenal, isn't it? It's
mm,
huge.
mm.
And like it again, that's another, you know, it's really sad, you know, that children are feeling that way and not just having a happy carefree childhood.
Mhm,
And I guess the pandemic has got a lot to answer for in terms of isolating children. And during the pandemic with the lockdown, again, if you're in an abusive traumatic household and you're stuck there during that time, not able to go out, I mean, again, the impact on that is just,
mhm,
it's yeah, it's massive, isn't it? It's like you're basically locking people up with the one person that's killing them bit by bit
mhm, mhm,
and with nowhere to go.
mhm,
So 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 I was talking to a girl called Sam who's is American, and she said, again, people say to her like, oh, she's strong, courageous and stuff like that,
mhm,
but she doesn't see herself like that, and she doesn't want to be seen like that. She wants to be seen as inspiring.
mhm,
And I think and impactful. And I think my opinion is obviously that she's all four things. You know, you don't have to be one or the other. And we don't always see ourselves as strong because we are just doing what we've got to do to get through whatever we're going through at the time. And our brains and well, not so much our bodies, but our brains will protect us, whether it's by disassociating like I did, you know, like shutting it off and sort of pretending it's not happening to a certain extent, just so you can carry on, or whether it's, you know, like through so again, some women fight back and then they end up in a really vicious cycle, because if you hit back at someone that's hitting you, the violence can get a lot worse. There's just so many extremes, aren't there? And like you said, to one person, one thing can be the end of the world. And I think as well, I was looking at trauma and women that have been through trauma, or people that have been through trauma, like big major catastrophes and events, and you know, like a huge incident will be really calm. And then it can be something really little, like we forgot to buy something at the grocery store, that'll be that one thing that gives us a proper meltdown. And people don't understand that either, but apparently it's quite common in people that have been through trauma, you know, because other big, huge, really mad things don't phase us because we've lived through what we lived through. And then, yeah, the little things are the things, silly little things that are the things that break you. And I think, again, it's allowing ourselves to have a day or half a day or an hour or whatever to feel whatever we need to feel, and then the next day getting up and going, right, I'm going to get back to it now. And I think that's sometimes I have that. If I have a bad news letter from the hospital, I'll be like a bit sad for a few hours, watch some crap TV and like feel sorry for myself, and then but I'll only allow myself a certain amount of time to do that, and then I'll be like, right, okay, what am I going to do, you know, that's positive? Because if we wallow in these things, it's just, then the person's won, haven't they? If they've taken our soul and destroyed us, then they've got, I don't even know if they set out to achieve it, because again, there's like lots of, you know, it's really hard. I don't know, like there's all people that say abuse people, hurt people, and all this kind of thing. But then, like, just like we're talking now, like I don't ever intentionally hurt people. Do you?
Nope. Never.
So yeah, this hurt people. It's like one of those, I don't really buy into it, because I think we've all got a choice how we behave, and we all know. For example, if you choose to take drugs, and you know that drugs like cocaine, for example, make you violent, and you choose to take them, and then you know that that's going to make you do violent things towards your partner, you have made a choice. You know,
yeah, it's a choice. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And you know, we could all, like, you know, again, lots of people turn to alcohol, drugs after trauma, don't they, to get over it. And that's a coping mechanism. But you know, it's not wrong or right, but it's a choice, isn't it? We've all got the choice. Like I guess I've never been a massive drinker. I'm not very good at it, but I've never been the kind of person that has a bad day, so thinks, oh, I've got to drink a bottle of wine. And I'm glad about that, because like you still got to wake up the next day, you've still got to deal with life, haven't you?
Yeah,
you know, it's still, whatever problems you've got, you can drink or try and erase them, but they'll still be there. You've still got to face up to it at some point. So
yeah, you're right. Yeah, I'm loving everything you're sharing. Thank you so much. Do you have a podcast as well, and books?
no, so I haven't got a podcast. I think about doing one with my friends.
Okay.
So she's had a slightly different. So she worked in the NHS all her career as well, and now she's doing coaching as well. But her experience is slightly different than mine. She's been divorced 3 times, and she did have one controlling husband, but not physically abusive, etc. Again, she's only really realised recently that it was abuse, again, because people don't count it as abuse. So she's sort of processing that. So we have a lot of similarities and then a lot of differences, but she's passionate. We're both passionate about showing women that you can start again, whatever age you are. We're obviously both passionate about empowering women, and we both coach, but she wants to do travel coaching. So she wants to empower women to go off on their own backpacking around the world and sell everything they own and go and enjoy themselves. So yeah, it's a slightly different aspect, but lots of similarities. So we've been collaborating on quite a lot of things. And we're looking at starting a podcast now. But I write a lot, so I've written for different, I say journals, magazines, whatever people want to call them, guest blogs and things. So I write about obviously coaching stuff, but I also write a lot about trauma and healing and things like that. And I have done another podcast. So I love Canva. Since lockdown and stuff, I got addicted to Canva because like, you know, like making art is really good. So for someone who can't draw, it's really good to like create things. So using the coaching tools and stuff, like we've got made different journals. So I can send you a link. Made some journals again around healing, but for people that have done like that want to look at themselves and do the healing, you know, like the part of looking at yourself, like boundaries, limiting beliefs, and also just like reinforcing like affirmations and things like that, you know, things that can make you feel good about yourself that don't depend on anybody else. So those kind of resources, and again, I've kind of done those so that they can be shared with anyone. You know, I've created them about like, so I've done a few different bits of work with different people, and they've got their own podcasts or platforms, and it's like, you know, that exists. They can put their brands on it, whatever, and just use it. But it's there for people to have to help them. So I like journaling and things. I think like writing again is something I've always done since a young child, and I think it's something I'm passionate about. But it's a good way of It's kind of like free therapy. I can't say but yeah, it's therapeutic, isn't it? You process your thoughts if you get them out of your head. And also like use again, so like I'm quite introverted, so for me, like I have done it, but it's not like my biggest, like I don't love it like standing on the stage in front of hundreds of people. I'll do it if it's something I'm passionate about, but the rest of the time I could spend a month and not see a living soul. I'll just see my dog. Yeah, I'm quite happy in my own little world, not overly peoply. And again, that's probably a trauma thing, you know, we protect ourselves, don't we? So I'll do it. So if someone wanted me to speak about abuse, I'd stand on the stage, and I've done it about pharmacy. You know, I've stood on stages and spoken about professional things and things like that. But yeah, I think writing is a way of sharing your healing with people just as effective as you know, as podcasts and videos. I think this year my challenge to myself was to start talking my story out loud, you know, to sharing it out loud, because I know a lot of when I do speak to people, they connect with it. And you know, I've had people, I think in lockdown, first of all, I was in a group, and they wanted us to tell our story, and I told my story, and I had people coming to me afterwards saying that it helped them. And I think that kind of made me sort of think, actually I need to push myself and share my story so that it can help other people. And so yeah, and again, we need to grow, don't we? So like for my personal growth, like it's okay writing, and I do sort of say you don't have to be the loudest person in the room to be heard either. You know, you can be quietly still making an impact on the world. But if you want to make a bigger impact, I guess you've got to have a bigger platform, and that means making yourself uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I love your story, and I know for sure someone who may be watching or listening, maybe they're going through the same thing, maybe they have gone through the same thing. So you're helping people, and I can see you doing lots of more things to help people. And at times it will be scary or not the easiest, but I can see you having the ability to do that, to help people. So thank you for sharing.
That's okay. I think one thing I would say that I learned, somebody told me, Alex is a tarot reader, but she's very, very wise. It's almost like she can see inside your brain. She always says, speak from the scar and not from the wound.
Ooh,
so like I think it's better for us when you've been through trauma, is like do your healing. So when you speak like I am now, I can speak about it without sort of crying, or I could tell my story in a powerful way, and I'm not a victim. Whereas if you were speaking about it maybe immediately after you've left, you are going to maybe get emotional because you're attached to the situation. So I think, for other people that want to share their story, you know, start by writing little blogs and sharing it that way. But I think, you know, make sure you're feeling strong inside yourself before you start speaking publicly, because you have got to be, when you put yourself out there publicly like this, you've got to be aware that the person that abused you might see it. And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that's something that you have to sort of bear in mind. So you have to make sure you're emotionally, physically, mentally, and in your house or wherever, you have to make sure that you're safe, because you are, once you're putting your story out in the world, you are, there is a, I don't know what the risk is, but there is a risk that that person's going to see it and they're going to find you. And I think that's something as well that I'd say to anyone is make sure you're safe.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I will share someone's story for them, because if they share it, they're not going to be safe. And I think that's another thing, is like, you can share your story, you don't have to do it yourself, you can still help people, because I know that most people that have been through trauma, they do want to help other people. And I think that's a good way to heal yourself, isn't it?
Yeah.
So someone I was talking to said to me, "Oh, I'm still on my journey." She wants to start a podcast talking about healing and stuff like that and trauma. And she was a bit worried that she wouldn't, that she wasn't healed enough. But I said, you might find actually that it's actually healing for you, because you're empowering other people. So but it's important to make sure you're safe. I think that's a really massive thing, isn't it? Making sure you're safe, making sure you've got a safety network around you, just in case something happened. And also, like, triggers, we didn't talk about triggers, but learn what your triggers are, and then learn how to deal with them in a healthy way, like cope with them in a healthy way, like I said. So trigger might be whereas originally, when I first got through, a trigger might have given me an anxiety for like a week, I'd be like, ooh. Whereas now I let myself feel it for a certain amount of time, and then I'll be like, right, no, you've got to get on with it now. Which isn't as simple as it sounds, but you do learn to cope with things, don't you? So once you can recognize your trigger as well, like when you recognize the triggers that you've got, you realize that's another part that you perhaps haven't healed properly. If something triggers you off, it's because you need to perhaps go back and work on it.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you for sharing. And so many of us do get triggers. And I love that you mentioned to recognize it, know it's coming, where it's coming from, because sometimes because of our triggers, we can trigger other people, hurt other people intentionally, right? And thank you for sharing. Do you have any final thoughts? And also, where can my listeners find you if they'd like to hear more?
Oh, I'll send you my link. At the moment, I use my LinkedIn as a
Okay.
platform, really, and I share stories on there, and I also share things that I've been published on in there. So I'll send you a link that you can put on. And obviously, if I do get a podcast, I'll update you and
Yeah.
give you the information. But again, if there's, I'll give you a link to the resources that I've made. Like, they might help someone else. If you like journaling and things like that. There might be something there that someone wants to look at, and there's no cost to it. Like I said, things should be accessible. I feel, again, it's around supporting each other. So again, I go back to vicarious resilience, but it's around using our experiences to empower each other, and not to pity each other. I don't think any of us want to be pitied, do we? Or like sympathy and empathy. Again, it's we don't want that. We want to be empowered, don't we, to live our lives on our terms.
Yeah.
And I think that's everything that I do, like coaching or writing. It's all around empowerment of helping women, like I said, be the leader of their own life, because that's really where then we can be our best self and live happily ever after with our dog or our whatever. For me, she lived happily ever after with her dog in her own castle. But you know what I mean? Like, and again, like, don't let anyone else define your happiness or how you live your life. Because when you come out of traumatic situation, again, everyone's got an opinion on what you should have done, could have done. They haven't got a clue.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They've all got an opinion. When you should have done this, you should have done that. All those shoulda, couldas, they didn't happen. So The waste of, you know, we don't need that opinion. We need either people to be hold space, let us say what it is we need to say, or what we don't even know we need to say without judging us.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
you know, there is a stigma, isn't there, that like if you've let someone abuse you, then it's, you know, what's wrong with you, like we said about being damaged or broken, etc. Yeah, and actually that's, you know, that's not true. The people I meet and talk to, they're just inspiring,
Mm.
you know, empowered and courageous women, or oh yeah, and some men as well, and sadly some teenagers and children. um but yeah, those people are strong. They are strong and brave.
Mm.
They might not want to be called that, but
Yeah.
yeah, they are strong and brave. They're resilient, and they will go on and change the world, you know, someone's world, by sharing their story and by helping other people get through
Mm-hmm.
rubbish times.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can tell that you're changing my world as I hear your story, because it's a strong woman like you that can help some people understand that it's okay to have gone through what they've gone through, and it's okay to hurt, and it's okay to heal and to feel. So thank you for sharing your story with us. Do you have any final thoughts before I let you go?
No, just obviously if anyone's ever stuck, like I'll put my link. If anyone ever wants to message, you know, I
Mhm.
do always answer my messages. Not always like immediately, but like if someone ever reached out to me, I'd always have be able to either help them myself or signpost them to someone who can.
Mhm.
And sometimes you just want to say those words out loud, don't you? And I've been the first person a lot of people have told, because they've really listened to my story and realised that that's them.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes it's just telling someone that starts you on your journey to
Hmm.
getting out, getting
Yeah,
free.
yeah.
So, you know, yeah, my inbox is always open.
Hmm.
And as I'm sure you know, like you're doing this now, aren't you? You're making a platform where people can feel safe to feel seen and heard. So, you know, like what you're doing is really valuable.
Thank you.
And
Thank
again, you know, I know you've come from my place of trauma and stuff yourself. So
you.
you're using your pain and turning it into power and empowering other people. So
Thank you so much. I'll make sure I share the links, and yeah, so people can connect with you if they would like to. And I hope they do, because you have a wealth of knowledge in so many different areas that you can help them.
yeah, so I will as well. I'm going to start a group, closed group on LinkedIn for,
Mhm.
I think I'm going to call it No Excuse for Abuse,
Mm.
where women can join together, share resources,
Mhm. Mhm.
again,
Yeah.
globally, because I think it's important globally, you know, rather than just like it's not a UK problem, it's not a US problem, it's everywhere.
Mhm.
And a lot of women from developing countries are on LinkedIn and using it as a platform. So I
Mhm.
think having, you know, having a safe space, a group on there that they can look into if they want to, flick in and out of. Because again, sometimes listening to things like this, people can't always listen, because if you've got an abuser around you and
Yeah.
they hear it, whereas if you're reading an article or something, you can like quickly flick off. And you know, because we know what it's like, they're checking your phone, they want to know who you're speaking to, what air you're breathing, you
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
So yeah, just I think, yeah, like the more we help each other
Mhm.
and support each other, and again, just generally trying to make the world a bit kinder. I think since the pandemic, people somehow forgot. I think it's two extremes. I've seen really out, you know, kindness that's just blown me away, and then I've seen the opposite extreme, which is people just forgetting how to be kind and decent humans.
Yeah.
So I think there's kind of like the middle ground seems to have got lost. So it's just to
Mhm.
try and make a kinder world, really, where people care about people and have got time for them.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for your time.